I have lost my faith in humanity again. These people are using the Los Angeles fires to push their political agendas. Just look at this. Los Angeles deliberately set out to excluding white men from becoming firefighters to prevent their city burning to the ground. DEI is a cancer that destroys everything it touches. All this because they have a lesbian fire chief. That doesn't even make any sense because the people fighting the fires are still all men. And you know how I know that because of this. You can visit the Los Angeles Fire Department's website and these pictures come up. They look awfully a lot like men. Even in all the videos of these firefighters fighting the fires, which you can find online, they are mostly men. Yet these people are still making these baseless claims and these dimwits are eating it up. Even for the sake of argument, let's say that all of these lesbian women were replaced by macho men. Do you think that would make a difference? You would still have the same amount of firefighters fighting these once-in-a-lifetime event. And with winds carrying these embers at least a mile, you would still have the same amount of fires. The bigger issue here that should be talked about is how Los Angeles cut their fire department's budget in order to increase their police department budget. And that directly affects the productivity of the fire department. In fact, LA mayor has been criticized about this exact thing.
And another issue, another concern about resources and in particular staffing as well. And we heard from firefighters even on the front lines expressing frustrations. Can you address the criticism now over the budget issue and the slashing, $17 million slashing?
I think if you go back and look at the reductions that were made, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation that we were dealing with over the last couple of days. And then there was a little bit of confusion because money was allocated to be distributed later on, which was actually going to support salaries and other parts of the fire department that were distributed a little later. So I think it's most important to understand that we were in tough budgetary times. Everybody knew that, but that the impact of our budget really did not impact what we've been going through over the last few days. Again, back to the unprecedented windstorm.
But instead of focusing on this issue, these political idiots are focusing on the lesbian police chief. Absolute worm brain. It's sad that in this horrific time for these people, this has been turned into a political issue.
Everything, like the sentimental things, like my mom passed away, I had only a few things of hers left.
Once again, guys, the wind conditions are so bad in LA right now that these embers can travel unexpectedly to a totally new spot, and the firemen are playing a cat and mouse game with this. Even if all the firemen were Chuck Norris, they wouldn't be able to get this under control, yet these political trolls are choosing to focus on something totally irrelevant, like a lesbian fire chief. But then again, you can't expect Matt Walsh to act like an adult. After all, he is the same guy who got caught lying on the most famous podcast about the very topic he made a documentary about.
They admit that they're wrong, then they're also admitting that they have horribly disfigured and abused thousands, maybe millions of kids.
How many people have had this done?
Depends on what. I don't think we have exact numbers, but if we're talking about the drugs, millions.
You're talking about hormone blockers.
Yeah.
Millions of kids have been on hormone blockers? Really?
I'm sure someone's going to fact check me on that, but my guess is that we're into the millions now at this point. Yes.
That we're having these conversations.
Yeah, they will be. And I also, I actually think that this shouldn't be happening to.
It's a very small number, if that's right.
It says over the last 5 years, there were at least 4,780 adolescents who started puberty blockers and had a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis.
This says it's kind of undercounted, but that
would be a big undercounting.
Less than 1,000 people a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess, hundreds of thousands at this, but I could be wrong.
Million sounds great.
Yeah.
All in all, a very sad time for humanity and political discourse. These people don't even need to provide any evidence. They just say a few buzzwords and get people riled up. If you are in Los Angeles right now, please stay safe and hope this gets better for you. Guys, if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up, and also I just want to finish the video with this. There have been warning signs for decades with rising temperatures and more frequent disasters that climate change is the cause of this. I think this video sums it up perfectly.
So here's the thing, guys. When we talk about this fire, right, there's a thing that people used to say when a natural disaster like this happened. And I'm sure you've heard it before, too. It goes a little something like this. Look, you can't blame any individual weather event or natural disaster on climate change. But you can look at the trends, and in the aggregate, you could say, hey, we're moving in this direction. This used to be what people said. We've now come to the point where these events are so extreme, so common, and so devastating that I'm even beginning to see scientists now not add the caveat, right? You're beginning to see people be like, no, this is directly because of climate change. So let me break this down for you. This just came out the other day. World breaches 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming target for first time in 2024. Data for warmest year sparks fears climate change is accelerating faster than expected. So I know like almost every year for the past 5 or 6 years, we would cover a story that's like warmest year on record, right? And every year it's still the warmest year on record. Like it's happening every single year. Virtually every year is like it's warmer this year, warmer this year, warmer this year, right? So why is 1.5 degrees so important? In other words, what the Paris Agreement hoped to prevent altogether happened more than 2 decades earlier than expected. In other words, when you hear people say, hey, we did a new study, and it looks like the current trajectory, the current path we're on, is actually worse than what scientists thought was the worst case scenario. Worse than what they thought was the worst case scenario. That's real. That's true. That's happening. We are 2 decades ahead of breaching the Paris Climate Agreement, and we just breached the Paris Climate Agreement in terms of the amount of warming that we got. I need you to stop and think about that. By the way, what happens in these situations? It's exactly what we've witnessed. So you have more extreme weather events, more natural disasters, but it's on both ends of the spectrum, which is why, whatever it was, last year or 2 years ago, you had massive flooding in LA during the rainy season. And then now, we're bone dry in the middle of the rainy season, and there were these massive wildfires.